The information expressed in the following podcast is intended for educational purposes only and was created by and belongs solely to Believe Limited and the Flow podcast and does not necessarily reflect the views of our sponsors. Please speak to your healthcare provider before making any medical decisions.
I want to ask you a question. What did your mom tell you about periods?
You know, we're here today gathered to talk about it's Mother's Day in May, but also what was your earliest lessons of what periods are? What did your mom tell you? What did your parents tell you? Like, what menstruation, when it first showed up in your life, what was the very first thing, first exposure? Hi, welcome to Flow. My name is Jessica Richmond. I'm here with Sarah Watson, sex therapist, and this month we are flowing with some of our Believe Limited and Bloodstream Media teammates. And yeah, all of us want to know, how is your flow? Welcome once again to Flow. I'm here like every month with Sarah Watson, sex therapist. And before we check in with some of our guests, we're just going to check in like we always do to normalize the reality of menstruation. Sarah, how's your flow?
Hey, I just ovulated and it was a nightmare. Yay! Glad it's over. I wanted to crawl out of my own body. I don't know why it was so bad, but it was freaking the worst ever. So maybe perimenopause. Cool.
Now, it's a nightmare you woke up from, but in the nightmare, you're saying the worst ever pain, the worst ever... Okay.
Worst ever pain? Like I feel like I hadn't had cramps like that since I was like a teenager, like starting my period. But this was for ovulation. So little alarming. I was very, very concerned. I was going to say if I woke up with the same pain, I was going to call my doctor because I was so concerned.
Okay.
But
so how long?
Solid 24, maybe 30 hours. Yeah. Just nonstop, like little knives in there, but maybe big knives. So, yeah. So I'm going to keep an eye on that. If it happens again, we're for sure doing something. So we'll see. And nothing, I can't take much. So just heating pad.
And time just kind of slows down in that kind of pain, right? Like you're just in those hours waiting to see how long. What is when you reach that mark that, now I do need to call for help. Oy.
Yeah. Well, and I think, traditionally as women, we wait a really long time to call for help because I'm like, I got it. I can make it through. Like, I'm probably not dying. Right?
Right. So, and because you are a powerhouse who has made it through so much, you have that to lean on. But so being sensitive to when your body needs the support. Yeah, that deciding factor, making that decision's got to be hard.
Yeah. It's really interesting because my partner, he makes that decision really quickly for our kid. Like he'll be like, it's time. Let's call the doctor. And I'm like, are you for real? Like, do we really need to go take her? I'm a little more weighted out, but I'm trying to kind of lean on his vibe of like, hey, let's not suffer through things and take care of yourself. But I did set that day. Like I can like go to sleep, see what happens. And then if it was bad, I was going to do something. So, but I'm going to try to lean into the Marty, if you will, which is
the Marty style. That's the Mr. Martyr. And hey, we appreciate the leadership of knowing that that's a reminder that is needed, right? Like, you need a reminder to not have to wait and suffer through the Marty style.
Marty style. Yeah. How are you? What's going on? Where are you in your flow?
I'm luteal. I'm luteal.
Okay.
What do you want? I'm so annoyed at my own annoyance level at things that I don't normally find annoying. I'm in one of those rounds where I feel okay, but I don't feel okay about so much. And why is that person driving so slow? You know what I mean? That's just where I'm at. And we're going to get through. We're going to get through.
We're going to get through. Hi.
We're going to get through.
Hello.
Hi. We're going to get through.
Hi. We're going to get through. Where's your period pain today, Patrick?
Mostly in the back of my head.
Okay.
Huh.
Interesting. Okay. That's normal.
Isn't
That's
it?
typical.
Isn't it, though? Oh, good. We're recording. This is all part of it, I assume?
Yes, this is part of it. And we're gonna hear more about that right after this quick break.
This ad is brought to you by Von Vendi, Von Willebrand Factor Recombinant.
Hi, my name is Nicole. I didn't always feel empowered to speak up for myself or ask for the care and support I needed. Becoming part of a community and hearing other people's experiences helped to change my perspective. That's why my deciding factor is making my voice heard. To hear my story and access other helpful resources, drop by Von Vendi, that's VONVENDI.com/patient-stories.
We're going to get into it flowing with none other than Patrick James Lynch. Of course, if we're having a Believe Team Bloodstream Media flow, we got to ask Patrick, not just how's your flow, but, how did you learn about periods?
Have I learned about periods?
How? How did you? Have you?
So, Patrick,
have you
tell
ever heard
us
of that?
about.
I would have appreciated a little bit more education at some point. I feel like I learned about periods from television and in hearing jokes about PMS and women's time. There was like this mysterious innuendo around something that was framed as happening monthly to women, but wasn't ever made clear to me what it was. It was only made clear to me that I didn't have that. Like, I didn't really have to concern myself with that. And beyond that, it was something that was, used in television to like make jokes or justify somebody's moody behavior. I have to say that's like my first entree into menstruation.
Wow. So when did you figure out what it was?
Probably not until puberty. And even then, I'm like wondering how much did I really understand what it was, or did I just have more understanding? Maybe not even until high school.
Sure.
I'll go ahead and say even not until high school. And frankly, if you asked me 10 questions right now that really dug in, we'd probably expose all kinds of ignorance.
Okay.
Fair enough. No, we're not. It's not a pop quiz. That's not what this is about. It's actually more keenly trying to time travel back to youth where, so then not it being this mysterious thing that was just how it happened monthly and hearing about the moods, did that information first come from your mother, a parent, a friend, or a teacher?
Yeah.
School, but I can't say a teacher. I mean, maybe in health class, I'm sure we covered something, but it was more like kids in school and chitter chatter in school. It definitely was not a parent. My parents didn't want to talk to me about my genitalia or biological processes, females' genitalia or biological process. We didn't want to talk about any of that in my house. So I'd have to say like kids at school and television. And then it probably wasn't until I was in college and involved in certain projects and like deep diving certain things that I understood more about biologically what it really was. That's a long time. As I say that out loud, that is a long time to go without understanding something as foundational to the human experience as menstruation. But then again, I'm speaking from a very biased point of view now in my life.
I also would say that's really typical, right? From what we've heard from people learning about it. Like, unless you have unless you're menstruating, like, and even then you don't even get all the right information, let alone, I'm not super surprised by that.
And you're pointing out that it's weird that we've just haven't socially considered that so important. Because listen, you're busy as a kid, right? I'm sure you were learning lots of things experientially from the school. I don't know. Yeah, you're having experiences. So it's not like you were, but there's this vital thing that was missing. Like, how does it work? The bleeding.
Yeah. And I didn't have it for my own body. So I guess I wasn't expecting to have it about, the girls and women in my life's bodies. Like, I didn't understand my own body's functions. So I never felt like I was missing something because I didn't have this other thing, which felt much more relevant to me in the first place. So I never felt like an absence of menstruation education in my life. But looking back, it's only because there was an absence of my own biological health education. So it just seemed normal to not know so much about this stuff.
Well, and can we ask about that? What about the male flow? The hormonal flow of being a man is certainly something that's not even now, I think, largely discussed that I know,
No.
like the daily testosterone flow that a male goes through and how that might impact their moods and whatnot. Is that something that you feel like there's education around today?
I feel like as a, in the year of turning 40, like I talk with my 40 and 40 plus friends, and there's conversations about things like testosterone. And I think there's been more awareness about some of these hormones in men as well since the time of childhood. But as a child, no, nobody was talking to me about testosterone. Nobody was talking to me about, my own parts and like sexual health and reproductive health and what does an erection mean? What is ejaculation? What is menstruation? What is the biological reproductive process? Like all of this was sort of tiptoed around. None of it was allowed to be spoken about directly. It probably didn't help that I also then went to a very Catholic, all boys, conservative high school. From a high school education perspective, I don't think that helped what we're discussing today. So it was all just a big black box that I just found myself fumbling around throughout middle school and high school.
Catholic school kids unite. We learned nothing about it in high school. Like, come
Correct.
on. Yes. No. Terrible.
Okay. And so then television. Television was the way to learn.
Unfortunately, yes.
So now time traveling to today, not giving you a pop quiz, but just curious. How percentage wise, how much more do you think you know now than you knew then?
Oh, I mean leagues, but 15x of 1% is 15%. So it's all relative, right? Like I think if I back then understood 5%, maybe today I understand 50%. Or 60%, but like I wouldn't go higher than that. And frankly, the experience of Natalie and I having Vivian, our daughter, 4 years ago, and the amount of times, I know this is a little bit of a tangent, but the amount of times something that was exiting Natalie's body that had any kind of reddish color at all was referred to as blood. Mind-numbing. The variation of color, texture, density, size, and it all just gets labeled as blood and normalized. And of course, later, she has a subchorionic hematoma and a retained placenta, has blood loss that almost resulted in the loss of life. And that was for no shortage of prenatal visits. We literally had dozens of them. No shortage of testing. We got every test you could get. We had all the privilege and opportunity possible. We're in Los Angeles, California. One of our doctors was the same doctor that brought John Legend and what's-her-name's baby into the world. So we had whoever we wanted to have, and yet everybody just called everything blood. Nobody was particularly alarmed by things that later turned out to be connected to a retained placenta that almost resulted in loss of life. So I think I caught up to what many women feel at some point in life when there's a realization of just how much ignorance, misunderstanding, prejudice, misogyny, you name it, like all these things that impede actual health care. Natalie's pregnancy was and the birth experience, the whole maternal health experience was my best window into just how reductive and unhelpful, frankly, sometimes the way we characterize what's happening in women's body really is. And I know I'm preaching to the choir, but that was my biggest lesson learned.
Yes.
Well, and I think then you say, maybe 50% now. And that might still be you have a long way to go. That's more than so many who stand on the other side of those questions when you go into a doctor's office. Like there are people who are answering questions no less than you do, sir, as a civilian in the medical field.
Yep.
Who, granted, is quite medically literate.
Absolutely.
But that's scary. That's a really scary idea.
Yeah. But that's one that we live with every time we go into the gynecology office or primary care or God forbid your hematologist, right? Like we know how we have to advocate for ourselves in every space. And I love you preaching to us what we know, and I appreciate that. And it just kind of screams like we need to educate everyone at an early age. Like, this is normal. This is how you came into the world, right?
It is. And, Sarah and Jess, you see this too in the bleeding disorders world. The last few years, as there's been an uptick in awareness that women with bleeding disorders are not being equitably treated, I sometimes say tongue in cheek, it's as though every session at every meeting the last few years is a women with bleeding disorders session. Because even if it says insurance and access issues or pipeline therapies or 340B programs, as soon as you let people in the audience start raising their hand and telling you what's on their mind, we hear about issues related to women with bleeding disorders. And it's not just from the women. That's what's most compelling to me. It's the men, it's the dads, it's the partners. So what I've seen happen in bleeding disorders, and I feel like needs to happen more in bleeding disorders, but needs to happen in general in our culture, is we need the men. We need the men to be part of realizing there's an issue, speaking about that issue, and helping to find solutions. We don't need the men to be in charge. We don't need the men to be the leaders, but we do need the men to be involved. This is an all of us issue, not a women's health issue. Women's health is everybody's health. Women's, as what was it, Hillary said it once, right? Like, women's rights are human's rights. Women's health is human health. It's true.
Yes. Absolutely. I know. Golf clap there.
We'll have
Big
that
clap.
round of applause go there.
Yes. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great preaching. Thank you.
Yes. Now we can talk about it at
That'll
the conference.
do.
Yeah, that'll do. We got it.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. I mean, as the dad of a daughter with hemophilia, this is not in the abstract for me. This is very real.
Right.
This is very real. It may not be what we're talking about, may not be my lived experience, but it is my lived experience as a parent. It is something I care about as a parent and as somebody who cares about Sarah and cares about everybody in this community that I've met. But as a dad every day, my daughter's like, my knee is hurting. And I'm like, what is that about? I don't want her to face the same level of dismissal and neglect that so many other women have faced when it comes to bleeding in their body. So I'm just trying to do my part.
Thank you.
You're here.
Yes.
You're welcome.
We're flowing from different time zones, but also just from different rooms, because Bella is part of the Bloodstream team. Magic, Believe Limited. You keep my belief alive. You know what I mean, Bella?
Wow. Thank you. And right back at you.
Cheers. Thanks for flowing with us. We're here today gathered to talk about kind of like, what did your mom tell you? What did your parents tell you? Like, what menstruation, when it first showed up in your life, what was the very first exposure?
Yeah.
Okay, so my mom's a nurse, so she was always, and my problem is I can't really remember exactly what she said about menstruation, but she was always like aggressively candid with everything. Like, I remember I was hanging out with two friends in middle school, and like first thing she did when like we got in the car is like first conversation was like, women need to be wiping front to back. And I was like 11 years old, and I was like, please, no, please save it for another time. Please.
Mom.
Unprompted.
She's like, hey, did you wipe correctly? Like, that's hilarious. Okay, Mom. Okay.
So that was very much so her vibe was very like, I'm going to tell you, like, all throughout high school was like, let me give you like sex ed. And I was like, I'm not having sex. I'm not. And so it'd be like every week. So, but the strange thing is like my gap in that is menstruation.
Oh.
And so I don't remember her telling me, but I do remember getting my period and sobbing and her trying to tell me about the tampon and being like, it's not that difficult. And I was like, I don't understand.
No.
I was like, I don't understand it. It's so confusing to me.
It's hard.
I was like, I don't get it. This is so hard.
I remember the first time using a tampon. Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's correct, right?
No,
like
it's
you get
terrifying.
But it doesn't look or feel like it should actually do what it's meant to do or something.
And
I'm trying to
then
get back to
I
my
still feel that.
pops
I still feel
out.
that today.
I mean,
it's confusing.
do you
It's really
do you not use tampons now?
Well, okay, this is actually very, very recent. I was like really excited because you guys had booked this first. And then I was like, oh my God, wait, I have new information to tell you, which is that our DP on the project that I'm currently working on, she had shot a commercial for Flex, the disc.
Yes.
And she was like, it's amazing. And so I was going to get tampons, and then I bought, like, they had the Flex disc, and I was like, I tried the Diva Cup one time years ago.
Yeah.
Cried. Because I couldn't get it out. It got stuck.
No, well.
And I was like, never again. And then I tried the Flex Cup, and I'm like, okay, 29 years of living. I was like combining tampons, pads, period underwear. Nothing felt right. I think it might be the Flex.
Oh, congratulations. We do golf.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You found your match. You found your match.
I think so. It's the best so far. And I honestly do think we can do better still, but I'm like, honestly, like, it's definitely the best so far.
Good.
If you don't mind, can you flow into some details? Like the best how could we do better?
Oh, I just feel like
it's the coverage or it's the placement. I mean, you said the other one got stuck in you, so it's like the fact that it's more flexible. Is that why it's called a Flex? Now we're just doing an ad for Flex. Sorry.
I know. I'm like, wait,
Sponsor.
Flex. Wait, sponsor me. Wait. It's the Flex and the Star Pimple Patch crossover. I think that's like where I need to get.
I like it.
Content.
Yeah.
But I think the reason I like it is because it feels. I don't feel it. Like, I feel like a tampon I can still feel sometimes, and I also get like really worried about it. And just like taking it in and out doesn't feel good.
No.
And like I don't know if that was helpful.
Yeah. It was. I mean, that's like on a personal level. I'm curious because I too was like taught about tampons as the way to go. I want to swim. You're gonna have to use a tampon. Something always felt like I don't feel like this should be in there. And I have less of that feeling with Diva Cups or the cups in general. And anyway. Sarah, what do you tampon? How are your tampon life? Do you use tampons? Remind me.
Nothing. I haven't even tried anything because I don't menstruate anymore.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So nothing. I would like something to take away the ovulation pain, but like that's just meds. So, that's cool.
Wait, has everyone in this room tried Pamphrin? Oh my God, I'm literally a walking sponsor for like things that I'm not getting sponsored for.
Pamphrin? Is it like Excedrin?
Huh? Wait. Okay. Years ago, I was in high school and a nurse practitioner, she was Canadian. She's like, everyone in Canada use Pamphrin. It's like Midol, but in Canada, people use it because it actually works. And ever since then, I've told everyone I know about Pamphrin because I'm like, it's the only thing that works, truly. Like, I've tried Midol, and I get like really severe period pain, and it's the only thing. It helps with your mood. It helps with your specifically cramping pain. And the pills are purple, so that's cute.
Even better. As long as it's not a blood thinner, because I got the hemophilia, That doesn't doesn't work for me like Midol does. So I'll have to look it up. But
look it up because I don't know.
Yeah.
It's got acetaminophen, Pambarin. Anyway, I don't know either. We'll look it up.
Yeah, I did use tampons. This is like well before I stopped. I got an IUD well before. Probably when Diva Cup came out, but it was just that Diva Cup. So I was like, no. So tampons, and hopefully never again. So that's great.
Yeah. No, bless. The cotton being shoved inside us is an interesting practice.
Tell us about the first time you talked to your friends or like cousins or whomever about menstruation. Do you remember that conversation?
I remember my first friend that got her period.
Ooh, okay. So what was the gossip? What was the tea?
It was my first friend that got her period. I think we were in 7th grade. Mm-hmm. And I remember it being like such like an adult thing to get. Like there was a correlation between, I guess it makes sense, of course, like it happens at the same time, but like there was such a correlation. I also remember thinking like, I don't want to deal with that right now. Yeah. And that was like, I was like, I can't, I can't do that right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And was it common to talk about it once a friend started? Was it like people were like sharing? Or was it?
No, I mean, even now I'm like, I think people like don't share very much. I like in high school, I'm like, I have no idea what my friends were using really.
Gotcha.
Like I think there was like a medley of like, you know, can I borrow a tampon? Can I borrow a pad? But I feel like there wasn't really a breaking down of like, hey, what is it that you're using and how does it work for you? Which would have been so helpful. I mean, also like a lot of the products that exist now didn't exist when I was in high school, but
Well, even like try a heating pad for your cramps, that
Right.
kind of
yeah,
stuff.
no, nothing. I remember being like, I ran track and I remember like having such severe period pain, like cramps shooting down my legs that I went into. There was like a makeshift bathroom because they were doing construction, and I laid down like on the floor of this like disgusting bathroom because I was in so much pain.
Bad.
And I literally had the thought like, I don't know if I can ever have a child because I don't know if I can tolerate the pain of like labor because I was in such excruciating pain that I was like, I kind of just want to die right now.
Yeah.
Hard.
But never talk to friends. I wasn't like, and this crazy thing, has this ever happened to you? What do you do when this happens? I felt like just kind of like, this is just what's happening. And, you know,
somehow
kind of move along.
In your own little room of experience versus in a shared experience.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you for sharing so much with us.
Like truly, Pamphrin, look, if you can take it.
Yeah, I'm gonna see
amazing.
if I can. Because I wanted to crawl out of my body the other night. I have not been in that much pain in a very long time.
Yeah, no, try it. That, and then my formula is the Pamphrin, heat pad, raspberry leaf tea.
Raspberry leaf tea.
Forget about that. Yes, because they also say to drink that at the end of your pregnancy to chill
your. Oh my god.
Mm-hmm.
And even, you know, this is my last one that I just discovered last period. Evening primrose.
Yep, that makes sense because it like helps you chill. Like it helps relax everything.
Drink it?
And so, for sure. Yeah.
I take a pill.
Yes.
Tips from a pro bleeder.
Heck yeah.
Hi, we're flowing today on Riverside. I'm inside the Flow logo for this moment. What? That's what's behind me. Wow. Hanna, thanks for flowing, and you're part of Bloodstream.
That was my dog.
No, he's the best. Mine got excited too. They can tell when recording happens.
Even with the headphones, you can't cap the animals.
He wants to say hi.
Animal spotlight.
Okay, back to it. Hanna, I want to ask you a question. What did your mom tell you about periods?
Yeah, Jessica, it's such a relevant question in today's world. I'm 29 now. Period hit me when I was in 6th grade. I remember it vividly I was in the classroom, I was experiencing a whole bunch of uncomfort, and then I go to the bathroom, and there she was. Mother Nature had visited me. Fortunately, my mom worked in the school system, so I just ran over to her, and she was able to help me out, got me out of school for the day, got the supplies, and then the conversation happened. I always knew, it was coming. Women bleed, periods are real, menstruation, it happens to all of us. And I had 2 older sisters who went through it. And my second sister, who was still older than me, anyway, Sarah, had a tough period throughout all of her life. I remember her specifically, she hurt a lot. And she bled a lot, more than what now I can say, reflecting, she bled more than normal. Myself, I didn't experience that as much. It seemed to be manageable, but I did feel like I started at an early age, and it stayed very consistent and stayed with a very hefty flow until I was able to find the resources and get myself on birth control, because it was something that was uncomfortable for myself. And I'm so fortunate that I had that opportunity at a young age to have that access, because it changed the game for me. The management, the regulation, it was so important. But when I compare it to my sister's journey, to Sarah's journey, hers was a little different. She took a long time to find a birth control or a contraceptive that would help her manage the flow and manage her symptoms to where she could still have an active, fulfilling lifestyle. So at a young age, before she was out of high school, she had the arm implant, and that was a big game changer for her. At that point, she was still having periods, but it is what we would now consider normal. So it took her that whole route to find out what normal could be for her versus myself. It never looked that way. And it was just always interesting seeing the difference of the comparisons of how we, same family, but experienced it wildly different.
Well, yeah. And did you mention now, has she gotten other tests or diagnosis for for the extremity of her periods?
Yeah, so she's been on a whole slew. I'm so excited. We are welcoming in my third nephew, but her second baby. And it's so exciting, but it also brings up some thoughts and some fear in my family specifically because I had cousins in the 80s and 90s who had hemophilia A, and though they lived very full and fulfilling lifestyles, they did end up contracting bad blood and passed away before they turned 21. And so that definitely sat with my family. You saw my cousins who were directly related to them. They made the choice not to have any children and to take that route because it left such an umbrella over my entire family dynamic. And so with my sister, we love it. She's had healthy births. She's never struggled when it's come to getting her tonsils or her wisdom teeth out. Everything seemed normal for her throughout those. But now that I've worked with bleeding disorders for so long, there's still so many things that I question about what's normal for my sister. For example, always been told she has low iron, always been told she's anemic, always had really large bruises. So when she found out she was having a baby boy, again, my third nephew is coming along, very excited. He is cooking. And everyone got nervous because it's an opportunity for hemophilia to be back in my family. And so I've advocated for the bleeding disorders community for nearly a decade now. And I didn't even have to harp on her. She went ahead, she got signed up, and she got her genetic counseling test done. And we are now waiting for the results to find out where she lies, if she's a carrier. And that, again, it brings up a lot of fear in my family because if my sister's a carrier, so is my mom. And that is a conversation that is just daunting and we don't want to have. Well, I want to have because I think it's very interesting. It's the world I live in. And we can have hemophilia. Women can have hemophilia. We can have bleeding disorders and have the most fulfilling, thriving lifestyle that we choose for ourselves. But that's something that not everyone sees. And so that's why it's so important to continue to share and advocate for it. Because even though we might not have normal periods or menstruation cycles, it's still important to talk about so we know it's not normal and what those next steps can be. So I'm just really proud of my sister for taking those next steps. No matter what route it comes, it's going to be exciting. We're going to have those conversations one way or another because that's part of life. Like we have to communicate through it and get through it together.
Well, and so knowing you have that family history and that there's sensitivity around finding out that someone might be a carrier because treatment is available now, so there's a difference. I guess, did it impact your first period at all to know that there was this family history of bleeding being a significant, leading to significant milestones within your family dynamic?
I wish it would have been a part of that conversation, but not at all. It wasn't a thought because that older generation, it wasn't until the last decade or so that it was acknowledged and accepted that women can also have bleeding disorders more than being symptomatical. Like women do have these problems that match other symptoms of the other gender, but it wasn't a part of our conversation. And I think it was because it wasn't until I started doing all of this advocacy work that message really set in. Women do have bleeding disorders. And it goes back to that conversation of what's normal in your family versus the next family. And that's why we got to talk about it.
Absolutely. So that led me to a follow-up. What was the first thing you ever heard? What was your early education about bleeding disorders? Like, what was the first time you ever heard about hemophilia? What did you understand it to be? If you could, like, travel back to young you.
Back to baby Hanna, not baby Hanna. I remember I was probably middle school, high school age, driving in the car. Well, I was riding in the car with my mom, And she was just sharing stories about her cousins. My mom's one of her best friends with my cousin Chris, and he had severe hemophilia A. But they were the same age and into the same rowdiness. And so mom would point to a parking spot by the school and say, yeah, Chris and I would get on the motorcycle right here, go around the block. And then when Aunt Pat saw us, we got in quite a bit of trouble. I was just like, well, mom, why do you get in trouble? And then she shared that, well, Chris had hemophilia, and that meant he didn't bleed easier. He just really couldn't stop bleeding. And so where we lived at in a small rural town out in Iowa, there wasn't access to treatment, essentially. They would drive 2 hours one way to the hemophilia treatment center in Iowa City so Chris could receive his treatment. And so that was a part of that sharing, that every time they'd get off the motorcycle, Aunt Pat would pack him up and head to the treatment center just in case. And that he'd have to make that trip anywhere from like 3 to 5 times a week just to be preventive and make sure that he was still able to live that full life.
And so in the car, hearing these stories from your mom about your cousins, learning what hemophilia is, to hearing it described and what it meant for his life, did you have similar conversations in the car about menstruation before it happened?
Not as much. It seemed to be more normalized with having my 2 older sisters, that this is what you can expect. This is how they've experienced it. This is life as a woman. Like, this just comes to us. And so let's rock it. Let's roll it. And it's not going to stop us. But it wasn't a dive in. What's normal? Like, what if you bleed more than 7 days? What if you pass like a quarter size clot once every 4 hours? I don't remember any conversations like that, but also I don't know if there was the tools provided at that time to really lend into those conversations, at least in my family dynamic.
Understood. And then how about your peers? Do you remember the earliest conversation you had with a friend or someone at school about periods, or someone asking you for a tampon? I don't know.
Small town Iowa, man. It was such a taboo. It was a taboo to talk about it. If a young woman were to start their period in class, the girls around, we would help make sure it was a safe space, but people weren't nice. People weren't always nice talking about it or listening about it. And so it was something that I felt that it was you needed to tuck it away a little bit more and not have those conversations. And that's how you can keep yourself the safest. But I don't believe that now. Like, it's very important to talk about it and to make sure that we can all understand the same page, because that's how Sally found out that she had von Willebrand's, from those nosebleeds and from what that can really mean. And wow, you're right. Like a 14-day period and passing a clot every hour, that's not normal. And I don't have to go through that.
The only other follow-up question I would have, and then anything else you might want to share, would be why keeping it quiet as a youth, why that was the best option. You mentioned that because bringing it up, it was taboo, there was sensitivities. Do you have any examples you'd be willing to share of such that was what explained to you? Or did you just learn the behavior that was appropriate was to keep it quiet?
I feel like it was, yeah, it was definitely a learned behavior just from seeing other people being in tough predicaments with it, not having the materials needed. Because wow, how is the right word? It's a privilege to have access to menstruation products, and not everyone has that resource. And so kids are mean, and so seeing kids be mean to others, it really guarded you. But I also remember people being mean to my sister, to Sarah, because she would have more extreme periods and like need to be out of school. And then people would really just pick on her for that. And so seeing that, I was just like, well, don't be that person, like don't get picked on. But also it taught you to stand up for the people who are being picked on, because at that age, I didn't have the language to go like, hey guys, like this is normal. This is part of life. Like, you can be grossed out, you cannot be. Like, there's no skin off our back because of it, because it needs to be discussed. We need to be discussing it at all ages, because if a young woman, I think young girls are starting to have periods at age of 9 if you have a bleeding disorder, maybe even without. But having a period at such a young age and not having the tools and the language around it, it can really shift those core beliefs that don't necessarily align with you, but you put them up for protection. And then that's just you, in 10, 20 decades down the road, it's then still on us to unlearn those and to make positive change out of it. And so when it comes to an example of seeing the meanness, I think it just kind of goes around across the board, and it's something that stuck with me, and maybe why now I try and lead with kindness. And you got to stand up for the person next to you. Even if they can't, someone needs to, because we have the tools and we have the resources, and together we can really make the difference with it.
Always inspired to get to talk to you and hear your point of view as such. Yes. Yes, Queen. Yes, Royal. Whatever it may be.
Royal. I like that.
I think you said it kind of, but I think I was looking for like, did someone bleed out? Did you see blood on someone's pants and you heard someone say like, ew, like what are the actual, or did you overhear like, she's been gone for a week because of her period? Ew. Was it ew that you heard, or what was the thing that was like, oh, I better not? Yeah.
I remember being in a classroom. I think it would have still been middle school, so like 5th, 6th grade, which seems wildly young, but that's the setting my brain brings me back to. And it was an individual who did not have the resources at home. And I remember when she stood up, just the marks on the seat, the marks on her pants, and her not knowing, but the boys seeing it first. And the eruption of laughter and pointing, and then how her face just fell red and ghostly white, because we'll set the stage. No, it's not great. We don't love having periods. No one wants that bestowed upon them, but you also don't necessarily want to be pointed at like that either. Like, this is part of life. We are learning at that age. And so the way that the responses just erupted, the oohs and the laughter and the pointing, it hurt every heart in there, even if you were a part of it. Like, no one deserves to be treated or responded to in that way. And kids can be mean, and when they don't have the tools and the resources and the language, that's all they know, that's all they can resort back to. And so that's why it's on us to like make sure it's known and have those conversations, because no one, even if you are the worst person in the world, deserves to have that kind of point and laughter aimed at you.
Yeah, I guess imagine with other natural bodily functions, if like every time a kid sneezed in a classroom, everyone laughed and pointed as if it was so shocking. Yeah. That's the normalization we're looking for. But how can we shift through the blood being, oh, okay, that's period blood, as opposed to we so don't talk about it that when we do see it, it's extreme just because we're seeing it, even if it's only a little blood. Yeah.
That's so right. I mean, snot has to come out of our body. So does blood. As a woman, that's just how it is. Our uterus wall, it falls. End of the story.
The wall, it falls. It's naturally occurring blood too. It's the only kind of naturally occurring blood that comes out. The rest of the blood is supposed to stay in, like sometimes we get cuts or injuries, but this is the one kind of blood that's it's not supposed to stay in. That would not be healthy. It's meant to come out.
No, you don't hold in your sneeze. You don't hold in your periods. End of story.
End of story. End of interview.
Well, that's it for this month. Check out our show notes for how to get in touch, and we will see you next month on Flow. Flow is produced by Bloodstream Media. Big shout out to our creative director, Amy Board, and our editor, Kay Vermeil. New episodes of Flow will be available the second Thursday of every month.
Hey, that's the day after I start menstruating.
And thanks to our sponsor, Takeda, for their support of Flow.